Gladiator star Russell Crowe, who slammed Clooney, Harrison Ford, and Robert De Niro.
Russell Crowe once occupied a space in Hollywood that few could rival, a figure whose presence on screen carried an undeniable weight.
I'm not interested in being the 174th Hamlet. What I want to do is I want to find...
In films such as Gladiator and A Beautiful Mind, he was a performer of rare conviction, capable of embodying characters with a depth and intensity that made him one of the most compelling actors of his generation. His performances were not simply watched, they were felt. With each furrowed brow and clenched jaw, Crowe conveyed an inner turmoil that set him apart in an industry often driven by surface-level charm. For a time, his name on a marquee was enough to guarantee both critical acclaim and commercial success. He was a leading man in the truest sense, and Hollywood rewarded him handsomely for it. But careers, particularly in the film industry, are rarely linear. The trajectory that once seemed limitless has, in Crowe's case, shown signs of wear. The ambitious roles that defined his early career have gradually given way to projects that struggle to capture the same level of intrigue and artistic merit.
I wasn't the best because I killed quickly. I was the best because the crowd loved me. I will win the crowd.
Where once he was the driving force behind grand epics and thought-provoking dramas, he now finds himself navigating a landscape that is markedly less forgiving. The industry that once embraced him as a powerhouse performer appears to have moved on, leaving him to contend with a reality that many once great actors have faced, the slow and often painful erosion of relevance. It is perhaps in light of this that Crowe's now infamous remarks about George Clooney, Harrison Ford, and Robert De Niro take on a certain significance. At a time when his own career was showing signs of decline, Crowe chose to aim his frustrations at three of Hollywood's most enduring figures, accusing them of having abandoned their artistic principles in pursuit of commercial gain. George Clooney, Harrison Ford, and Robert De Niro are sellouts, he declared, igniting a feud that in hindsight seemed as unnecessary as it was ill-advised.
Clooney got candid about Leonardo DiCaprio and Russell Crowe. Crowe once called Clooney a sellout and a Frank Sinatra wannabe. Well, that then set off an expletive-filled feud between the stars.
To level such an accusation at De Niro, in particular, required a boldness that bordered on folly. Few actors in the history of cinema have maintained a body of work as formidable as his.
$10 in your mitt.
$4 million?
More than you ever.
I do what I do best. I take scores. You do what you do best, trying to stop guys like me.
For every light-hearted studio comedy or commercially driven venture, there exists a catalogue of performances that have helped define the craft of acting itself. From Taxi Driver to Raging Bull, De Niro has approached his roles with an unwavering commitment to authenticity, often pushing himself to extraordinary lengths in pursuit of it. Even in the later stages of his career, with films like Killers of the Flower Moon, he continues to demonstrate a caliber of performance that few can match. Clooney, for his part, met Crowe's criticism with the kind of sharp humour that has become his hallmark. "He picked a fight with me," Clooney recalled. "He started it for no reason at all. He put out this thing saying, George Clooney, Harrison Ford, and Robert De Niro are sellouts. And I put out a statement saying, he's probably right, and I'm glad he told us, because Bob and Harrison and I were also thinking about starting a band, which would also fall under the heading of bad use of celebrity." It was a response that perfectly encapsulated Clooney's effortless charm, turning what might have been a serious accusation into little more than a passing joke. But Crowe, never one to back down from a confrontation, took issue with Clooney's flippant response. "Who the fuck does this guy think he is? He's a Frank Sinatra wannabe," he reportedly fumed. It was a reaction that revealed much about Crowe's temperament, his tendency to bristle at even the slightest hint of mockery. For all his success, he has always carried with him a certain edge, a sense that he remains at odds with an industry that thrives on diplomacy and self-promotion.
Hey, Russ. Hey. What's going on?
I'm the Actor Awards, the Australian Academy of Cinema and Television Arts.
Hey, you won? Congratulations.
No, I'm...
Oh, you lost? You were robbed.
In an attempt to smooth things over, Crowe later sought to make amends, sending Clooney a CD of his music along with a collection of his poetry. It was, by any measure, an unusual olive branch, one that Clooney greeted with characteristic indifference. Yeah, whatever," he quipped, before adding that he had considered using the gesture as material at an awards ceremony. The irony of Crowe's accusations is difficult to ignore, particularly given the direction his own career has taken in recent years. Where once he stood at the center of grand cinematic spectacles, he now finds himself in projects that, by his own criteria, could be considered questionable choices. His role in The Greatest Beer Run Ever, a film that received a lukewarm reception at best, and his turn as a tech billionaire in Poker Face, a thriller that ultimately found its way to VOD rather than theaters, are hardly the kinds of projects that one might associate with artistic integrity. The reality is that longevity in Hollywood requires a delicate balance, an ability to navigate between commercial appeal and artistic ambition. It is a balance that actors like De Niro, Ford, and Clooney have managed to strike with varying degrees of success. Clooney, in particular, has demonstrated an acute understanding of how to leverage his star power in service of projects that matter to him. Whether directing politically charged dramas or championing humanitarian causes, he has managed to cultivate an image that is both commercially viable and artistically credible. Ford, too, has carefully chosen his roles, opting to revisit his most iconic characters, while also exploring projects that offer something more substantive. His return to the role of Indiana Jones may have been met with skepticism, but it is difficult to argue that he has ever truly abandoned his craft in pursuit of an easy payday. Crowe, on the other hand, finds himself at a crossroads. His reputation as a formidable actor remains intact, but the roles that once defined him have become increasingly scarce. The industry that once celebrated his uncompromising approach now appears to favor actors who are more adaptable, more willing to play the game. The question that remains is whether Crowe can rediscover the fire that once made him such a compelling figure, or if he will continue to find himself on the outside looking in. What is perhaps most striking about Crowe's outburst is the sense of disillusionment that underpins it. For an actor who once seemed to have the world at his feet, the reality of an industry that moves on without hesitation must be a difficult pill to swallow. His comments about Clooney, Ford, and De Niro may have been ill-judged, but they speak to a broader frustration, one that many actors of his generation have faced: the fear of becoming obsolete, of being reduced to a footnote in an industry that thrives on the next big thing, is a powerful motivator, and in Crowe's case, it has manifested in a very public display of frustration. There is, however, a way forward. If Crowe can channel the same intensity that once made him a household name into projects that truly challenge him, there is no reason why he cannot reclaim his place among the greats. The talent remains, buried perhaps beneath the weight of expectation and past glories, but it is there. The industry may be quick to move on, but it is equally willing to embrace a comeback, provided it is done with sincerity and purpose. In the end, Crowe's feud with Clooney, Ford, and De Niro is little more than a footnote in his storied career. What matters now is what comes next. Whether he chooses to focus on the work itself or continues to engage in the kind of public disputes that do little to enhance his legacy remains to be seen. For an actor of his caliber, the path forward should be clear. Let the performances speak for themselves.